I just.
Should be live on that.
I see it's red.
And then I'll take
All right. Ready to go? Everybody ready? 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Hideaway Hills Club Board of Trustees on a Monday night, February 17. I appreciate everybody moving their schedules for a fairly specific reason. But anyway, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda in front of you?
So moved.
Scott moves. Can I have a second?
Second.
Tom Matthews, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda passes. President's report. Start off with the first thing is certainly not a happy note, but for many of you who've known him and worked with him, we unfortunately lost Paul Heimberger a week or so ago, way too early. For those who didn't know him, Paul was probably one of the biggest volunteers that we've ever had. He was always first out there to do help with things, whether it was animals or whether it was chainsaw or whatever. One of the first time I met him was right after I joined the management committee, and he didn't know who I was. So he came up and introduced himself to me, and I sort of said who I was, and he said, well, it's good that you're on because nobody knows you and they don't dislike you yet. And then he said, but they will. So that was one of the things. And Paul would always come to the management committee meetings. Before he actually was on the management committee for 6 years, but he would come to the meetings and he would speak out. He was out in the crowd and he would speak out all the time, just as if he was on the committee. So finally, after a while, I just said, okay, Paul, if you're going to talk this much and be in every meeting, come over on this side of the table and join us, and you can start voting on things. But anyway, there is a memorial service or a viewing this weekend. It's on various places, so if you can, but any game, I will.
29.
The 29th. I'll miss Paul a lot. I enjoyed working with him. He was a character, and I think we'll all miss him. All right, that's for that. The other reason we're meeting tonight, very simply, is that we have been talking and working back and forth through the management committee and other member advisory or advocacy group, and talking about what we need to do in terms of basically getting our budget back in place and being able to deliver services to the membership of Hideaway Hills. Process has been going on, sort of reached ahead last month when we approved a budget. The budget had some fairly draconian cuts in it. Since then, I've gotten a lot of pressure from people about when are we going to get together and when are we going to do some things to reinstate those issues. One of the main ones being the suspension of operations in the lodge as well as staff. People did step forward. We had a wonderful response on the security contributions for security guards, so that's great for us. But nevertheless, the time has come for us to move forward on this. We'll have a proposal tonight that we'll talk about, decide what we want to do with. And the other thing we did was we looked at the schedule, and if we wanted to get a vote on the ballot before the beginning of summer, which that was in our collective wisdom, was one of the things we were considering. The meeting had to be tonight. If it was tomorrow, then it wouldn't be 90 days before the vote. So we're looking at the Sunday between Mother's Day and Memorial Day in May. I think it's May 17th is the actual day. And later on, we will vote on having a special meeting, but that's why we're meeting tonight. So thanks everybody for coming. And why don't we get started with the meeting then, because there's a lot of big topics on the agenda tonight. Andy, do we have any correspondence?
No, we do not have any correspondence.
No correspondence. Andy put together the minutes for us, Andy and Christina, from last month's meeting. People had a chance. May I have a motion?
I've got a question.
You okay?
You said that we approved the budget. I'm looking forward to the minutes. Sounds good. Did you guys, if I don't vote, actually take a vote to approve the budget?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
It was an executive session.
That's right.
Okay, so it should be.
That's a good one. Yes.
So that should be added.
Okay. You're right. We voted afterwards because we were talking about the staffing changes that were incumbent or explicit in it. So we did vote later. Yes, it was voted. So with that addition, May I have a motion? Or do we want, or do we need to, do you want to see them printed back out?
No, I think it's just a motion to add the fact that the budget was approved in executive session.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes then?
So moved.
Linda makes a motion, second from Scott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Weddle, the treasurer's report.
Treasurers worked two committee funds in the Vinton County National Bank to the Hideaway Hills Board of Trustees checking account on January 31st, 2020 for $129,522.57. I'd like to make a motion that this treasurer's report be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Scott. Any questions of Tim? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion carries. With that, we go to the management committee report. Mr. Kirk?
Good evening. You mentioned the Save Our Security, where we went to the members and asked for pledges, and I wanted to give everybody an update. The members' donations to the Save Our Security Fund resulted in pledges of over $19,000, resulting in the staff cuts being postponed. I say postponed because if we don't get an assessment increase, then there's not enough there to keep it going all year, but it's going to be postponed for quite a while. Secondly, the Lodge Restaurant experienced their semi-annual health department inspection on their third to last day in business up there before we suspended operations, resulting in a very good report. Only 2 non-critical items. In fact, one of them was the fan hood shroud in the walk-in had a little bit of dust on the top of it, so I think they really had to go looking. Let me see what else. They only had 2 non-criticals, of which obviously both of them will be repaired or cleaned before we reopen the kitchen. The annual lodge shutdown for deep cleaning, which ended up also being the suspension of operations, was accomplished after the last night of business. Everything in the kitchen, all the surfaces inside and out, everything was deep cleaned and put in basically a storage mode for a while. The walk-in obviously still used because that's where we keep our beer backup stock. And I think one freezer they had to leave plugged in because they had some stuff that the clubhouse is going to try to work down. Next subject. January's numbers, the lodge lost $12,835 compared to last year losing $25,691. It was due to last year's shutdown was 3 weeks. In fact, last year's sales for January, off the top of my head, were less than $5,000 for the whole month. So this January looked super starish, and especially the last week or so, every night was a pretty good night. So that helped quite a bit. Clubhouse lost $4,673 compared to $3,245 last year. This was due to sales being off by over $2,000 and a spike in supplies. The supplies were spiked actually by about $1,000, which was transfer of supplies from upstairs that they can use. They didn't need them right away, but we were shutting down upstairs, so they got transferred, and that affected their bottom line number. Hideaway Hills, all accounts showed a gain of $7,920 compared to 2019's loss of $3,742, mainly due to the higher income in the lodge restaurant. Last thing I'm going to discuss at this time is in this coming ECHO, which I think the deadline is Friday, we will start the process to recruit and replace me on the management committee. I'm stepping down effective in May. I'm going to retire and spend time with my family and kids and grandkids. And the last thing on here is the management committee recommended proposals, which we'll get to when we do the new business topics.
Any questions? Are we fully staffed now then, once again in security, or Where are we at with that?
We are staffed.
Okay.
We had one leave, but we also had one that was basically still in part-time status, so they just moved him into full-time status.
Okay. So you have your full eight full people at this time. Okay. Good deal.
Any other questions?
Thank you. We'll get to talk to you a little bit here in a few minutes. The general manager's report, Randy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We keep getting better as far as the delinquency totals. In January of this year, regular assessments were at 24,802. As of today, February, they're down to 15,773 for regular assessments. Roads went down also from 2,570 down to 2,081. So we keep digging into those delinquencies. Also, the dam assessment total as of last Friday was $241,295. So that's going down as well. As of last week, I know we sent out a notice to the board for them to approve a 3-parcel lot sale over on Mohican Court. We'll close on that this Friday.
Good deal.
We're starting out well. I've got several others in the works. Hopefully they'll pull through this year. Load limits, which were in effect February 1st, which is 13 ton, 26,000 pounds. We changed that a couple of years ago to allow contractors to do a little bit more during the winter time. And we don't think that's hurt the roads too much. Kind of soft out there right now, but it doesn't seem to be affecting them too much. Lottery kiosk is in operation out at the clubhouse. We also purchased a safe for them to make for a more secure operation. A spring cleanup, we scheduled that for the first week of June, and this year, because of staff cuts in maintenance as well, we're not going to have the maintenance pickup. We'll still have the drop-off, we'll still have the dumpsters down there, but we're not going to have the maintenance pickup this year. And also, last thing on here was the Lego Four Seasons valve, which we've been playing with on and off throughout the winter. We haven't had any of the real serious cold weather, so we haven't felt a need to close it. But we will do that as of the first week of March. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of Randy?
I've got a question. Randy, you did get the goose depredation permit for 2020.
Yes, we did.
And
Now we don't have anybody.
yeah, I can say we ought to somehow get the word out that we need somebody to handle that.
I'll probably go to the range committee to talk to them about that. Yeah.
And one other thing, since I got conned into taking over delinquency because everybody else ran out of the room when somebody asked for somebody to take the chairmanship. I thought, yeah, right.
I was going to say, it's getting smaller and smaller.
It is. Yeah, well, great job I did. Well, I also talked to Penny today, and I've always not liked the report in terms of the fact that you've got so many different numbers as Randy reports them, and there's no total. And so starting next month, when you get that delinquency report, there'll be a grand total. And as of right now, it's about total is about $23,000 from the one I got today. And if you compare that to our $2 million revenue budget, I mean, the percent of delinquency is just amazing. It's great. So we're in good shape there.
I just have a question. Randy, you said that the well here for the lodge and the office is not functioning, so we need to replace that, right?
They're coming first thing tomorrow morning. I'm not sure what the problem is. They couldn't get out here today. They'll be here tomorrow morning to fix it up.
And so it's an infrastructure need, and they just happen sometimes unexpectedly. Just kind of
As
get
of
out.
today, yeah.
Do we have 2 wells here?
We do, but we separated them a couple years ago. One's for the lodge, one's for the pool. What happened was we found that any time the pool well was on, that we used it from there, it wasn't strong enough to service the the lodge. That's why we put in that 400-gallon tank back there, and we went through that pretty quick.
Randy,
Yes.
you may want to tell our guests about the bathroom usage.
In case they can during the meeting.
Yeah,
Good point.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the bathrooms are serviceable. We have a bucket of water in there that you can pour in the tank, so you can go ahead and flush the toilet. We also have soap in there that you can use, and so they are serviceable, but it's a little extra work. Sorry about that, folks. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
I already told the lady.
And this was not an attempt to identify our budget cuts.
Right.
It's not really, simply coincidence. All right, any other questions for Randy? Thank you very much, sir. Let's go to committee business and reports. Greg, do you have anything today?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nope.
Nothing for Scott?
Nothing.
Nothing for Mary Beth?
No.
Nothing there. I have nothing.
Yeah, you do.
I can't do it.
Communion night this Saturday at
Oh, yeah, sorry.
February 22nd. Food Services Committee and Food Fund and Fellowship are hosting that, so please come and have some laughs.
That's Saturday night, and there's going to be a pierogi truck here as well.
Yeah.
At 5:30.
What's Sophie's Pearl? Sophie's Pearl.
It's good stuff. I've had it at the farmer's market.
And the bar will be open at 5:30.
Bar
And the
will be-
show starts at what time?
8:30
8:30. 8:30.
goes till 11-ish.
Will there be a bathroom?
Yeah. I don't think we'll have a comedy night.
The comedy show will probably go till about 10-ish,
Okay.
and I think the bar will stay open because Joe,
Yeah.
you might want to say Joe's bartending, so it'll
Yeah.
probably stay open as long as there's people
Well, there's
there.
actually 3 of them bartending.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it doesn't cost anything, correct?
Nope.
And it's first come, first served, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And some of these tables will get moved up there on the dance floor, like those that have been to the comedy night they had 5 years ago. The place was packed from wall to wall, so good time had by all. Well, almost by all.
Indeed. So, yeah, I'm glad you reminded me. That's very.
Good job.
Thank you. Yes.
No problem. I don't have anything.
I don't have anything either.
Nothing. Oh, man.
Wow.
Everybody cleared the decks for, I think, for the big topic of the night. All righty. We have any fun for open forum? I have one person who wishes to speak during open forum and a couple question marks. So, Mr. Sharp, would you like to? You're the first on the list with the yes.
I'm the lucky one.
You are.
My name is Bill Sharp. I'm at 714. I wanted to talk about the letter that I sent in not too long ago to Mr. Kirk and it was distributed to Mr. Krieger and the ad hoc committee about my proposal for the amenities fund change. The 40-40-20 that they talked about at the last meeting wasn't as aggressive as I would have liked, but it made sense of the 75 cap. I wish it was more of a 50 cap, but I think at least we're pointing in the right direction. I'm trying to get some of that $142,000 from our severely depleted operating fund that we're really having a problem. At the same time, I know Sue Pyle, talks about needing money too for the different committees, and I'm well aware of that. At the same time, it's trying to be fair to everybody while you're asking for more money all the time. So I'm in agreement with that. The $30 per month and the $10 per month the following year, I thought that made sense if that's what the board wants to go forward with. If I'm saying this correctly, as of 2021, it's going to be $400,000 a year extra income coming in, or $2 million over 5 years.
That is correct.
So that should help us out tremendously with those two proposed changes.
Yes.
So I thought I mentioned that.
Number is right.
Okay. And then lastly, I saw on the agenda tonight, we're talking about expanding voting options. I wasn't sure if that was the email that they're talking about.
I think we have a lot of different ideas and proposals.
Okay.
I don't think we're
And-
quite ready to move on that right
Okay.
now.
Just as an idea, you know, regular elections, Hyden County, whenever I go to the election, I can do absentee ballot, which I usually do, or, and I go vote. I don't do an email. So I just like to share that seems kind of weird to me that we're talking about doing that. So, other than that, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Very good. I have a couple questions for people. Does anybody else want to speak at open forum? All righty. With that, we will go back to regular session. Unfinished business topics. The election nominating committee in the code, there's a requirement for a committee of 5 people, two of whom are not board members, to nominate candidates for the next election, which of course will be in August. And I would like to submit to you tonight the names of Annie Kerrigan, myself, Eric Lapp, Eric Boysko, and John Cook. All of who have agreed to serve on this committee. And so the 2 non-members, of course, are John Cook and Eric Boysko. That's, if somebody would make that motion for me.
So moved.
By Scott, moved in second. Second. Tom, second. Any discussion at all? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye. We have a vote from Florida. You're not using an app, are you? No, indeed. One of our members was not able to be here tonight, so he's voting over the speakerphone. All right. Next, we're going to go on to reaffirming the e-votes. Everybody look at their packet. There we go. A little lighter this month, so we will start with, these are all 8-0 votes, basically unanimity. On January 29, we had an e-vote for the barn to use committee funds to purchase up to $390 in supplies from 2 vendors for mud control of the barn. On January 30th, we e-voted for the chapel committee to pay the Echo $180 for an ad promotion for the Have a Heart charity dinner, which occurred in December. On 131, we had an e-vote to send out an e-blast regarding voluntary membership initiative to donate money to the Keep Our Security Guards effort until the next assessment vote. That was also on February 12th. We e-voted basically the approval of an amount for the club lot purchase of lots 17, 67, 68, and 69, and that was what, $8,500, Randy? And then February 13th, an e-vote to reimburse Greg Patassin $33.09 for straw and Christmas lights for the front fence. And then on February 14th, we had an e-vote to hold the golf work day on May 2nd from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, and the rain date is May 3rd from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. And the other piece of that is that the course will be closed during the time that our people are out there working on projects on the course. May I have a motion to approve the e-votes? Linda makes a motion, Scott seconds.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That was not I'm assuming you're in agreement, right? And not opposing?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I just want to, I know I've gotten into the second piece of it. I went too quick, so you're good.
Let me ask you a question on those e-votes, just for clarification for people watching. Those distributions of funds to the different committees, those are from monies they've earned, correct, in their committee fund?
Yes, they raised them themselves.
Okay, so that's not out of, I'm just for clarification.
That is-
that's
that
not
is-
out of our operating.
That is correct.
funds.
Those are generally committee funds.
Okay. Just
The only time we would do an e-vote on something would possibly be if the management committee wanted to buy something that was more than $15,000, that we would possibly e-vote that, but otherwise it will be committee funds.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. First things first, going on to new business topics. I'm making the proposal that we hold a special meeting for the membership of Hideaway Hills on May 17th, 2020 at 1 p.m. That's Sunday afternoon, the purpose of which will be to have a vote on assuming that we will pass an assessment increase proposal and the amenities. I could wait to do that till after we discuss that, but since it's on the agenda that way. Anybody have any feeling about that? Okay, somebody
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion to second.
I'll second.
Any seconds? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion carries. All right. Let's go to the assessment increase proposal. Again, as I indicated earlier, there's been a lot of effort. Primarily, the challenge was once again to the management committee to work with members and different groups within the community to come up with to come up with a proposal for an assessment increase. There was a fair amount of process. I would actually, Mary Beth, would you talk a little bit about your group and how that worked into the process?
Sure. So the MAG group, which is the member advocacy group, got together and tried to put a recommendation together for management and the board, which was sent to management. And I think I left you off, Randy, and I apologize. Somebody brought that to my attention, so I apologize. Essentially, what the group voted on that they thought, and this is a member-driven committee, that they thought would be appropriate to ask for would be to ask for a total of approximately $40 to be increased in 2 steps. The first increase would occur in June of 2020, the second in June of 2021, and the first approximate. The numbers they wanted for marketing purposes and also because the 2020 didn't sit well with members previously, the $60 seemed too much, or someone would find something on the line items they didn't like. Maybe it was the building of the extra shed, or it could have been something on the roads, something they didn't like, and that a lot of people voted no as a result. So the proposal that was recommended was doing something in the 28, 27, 50 range rather than doing a whole number, and the second increase being around the 10, 11 kind of area. They thought that would be a better way to present to Hideaway Hills, and there was a big desire to have a lot of transparency. That word comes up a lot, and not tie this necessarily to any expenditures, but to get our accounts healthy again because of our underfunded accounts, the employee health insurance, the depreciation, and the operating or the capital fund in particular. And so to put a hold on any unnecessary expenditures, we understand there are things that are going to need to be purchased, like perhaps a new well here. Things that we're going to have that we don't have control over. But things that there are control over that seem like wants instead of needs, they wanted to put a halt on those kind of things. The second part that they wanted included on this ballot was a CPI increase. And that's not really the right way to phrase it. We do our increases annually using the CPI index. And it ended up this year being 1.7%.
Right.
So we talked about numbers increasing on a regular basis instead of using the CPI as a basis and doing something in the 3 to 5% range for a period of time. And we had a vote using 4%, and that was what the group approved of. There was a discussion about should we do that now while we're voting for an assessment increase, and the thought was put it on the ballot now, but don't start it for 2 years after these 2 increases. That way people feel like we're not going to keep coming back and asking for more and more and more, and it's transparent. However, I know people have different feelings about that. And there was also talk about perhaps doing it for a 5-year period, and it could be reevaluated. And if the board didn't need that much increase, then we wouldn't have to necessarily take the full 4%. We discussed that idea of the supermajority the 66 2/3, and everyone decided, let's not deal with that issue at this point. We discussed the redistribution of new member fees, and this is what Mr. Sharp was speaking to. They did unanimously vote to cap that amenity distribution to $75,000. Any excess would go into the operating fund. That would allow the board to use those funds or management towards roads or somewhere where we most need it. And so this year, that would have resulted in an extra 60, 70,000 that we would have benefited from going into some of those accounts to help fill them up. Anyway, the 20 to roads, 40 to operating, and 40 to amenity is what was voted on. So that's pretty much it. We did talk about things like the lodge deck and SOS and the health and wellness center as well. The group felt, as far as the lodge deck, that it should be built and completed, that it was fully funded, and it could be used for concerts this summer. And they thought communication with the membership was what needed to happen to make that work, but they thought it should go forward.
Could you give us a sense of how many people were involved and how many meetings and how long this process is going?
We have met since November, and there have been pretty consistently about 20 to 25 people at these meetings, and they do their homework. And a lot of the people at this meeting voted no on the prior assessments. And my impression after this last meeting was, as people have become more informed and realized that, you know, they may not necessarily like that something gets paid partially by operating or partially by amenities. They may not like certain things or how it's done. They understand that's how we've had to do it to keep things working here properly. And I think everybody on that committee understands we need some more money right now. So even the people that said, like, they thought they were one of those that would never vote for another assessment increase, said now they totally understand, after being educated on it better, that they get it and they know we need more money. So how we go about doing that and informing the membership is what's going to be really, really important. And, you know, I've tried to convey this. Nobody's pocketing money. Nobody's making a profit here. Everyone's trying to figure out how to make this work in the best way possible. And people have different ideas, but everyone feels strongly because they love the community. So I don't think anybody wants to let the community go to pot. So we just got to figure out how to make it work.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions of Mary Beth regarding the process? Well, that was originally Annie even started off with a, I remember back even prior to that, with a survey following and what, could you talk about that for just a second?
Sure, so we did a survey last fall after the issue 3 failed to pass, and we asked for, we asked for a bunch of information just to try to understand what members' thoughts were and to how they voted and why they voted how they did. That's essentially where this committee came from, because we had a question in there asking if they would be interested in being a part of a member-driven committee, and if they said yes, then they got an optional question, which was to provide their contact information. So as Mary Beth said, we've been meeting since November, and we've had a pretty consistent group. In fact, we've had some people that have not been able to make some of the meetings, but they get our emails and then sometimes come when they're in town. So
I appreciate, all the work you've done, because that was one of the biggest questions that I had after we came so close in August is, what do we do? How do we go forward? In my mind, similar to you, I felt strongly that we needed additional revenue. I liked the 2020 proposal that we had. I thought we had spent a great deal of time trying to explain it to folks, that we weren't successful. So we needed to come up with a new idea, a new approach, and we needed more people at the table to, stakeholders at the table to share their feelings and what their thoughts were. And so that's what the process has been. And obviously, as you saw, when we did the budget here this last year, we had to make some, given the existing resources and with the requirement that we have to present a balanced budget to the community, we had to make some pretty significant cuts that I certainly don't like. I know a lot of people have shared with me in the last month that they don't like them either. So, so that's where we're at tonight. Based upon the feedback that we got, then Mr. Kirk and
Jim, I want to add one thing.
Oh, sure, please.
Mary Beth report. I sat in on those meetings, and Mary Beth said that those people do their homework. Those people understand our financials. They understand what's going on and the funds better than many of us do on the board. And they ask tremendous questions. And while I know from the discussions and emails going back and forth, their recommendations were considered by all the board members, even though we might not be coming out with a proposal that's exactly what they recommended. They were heard. And we're going to have 25 or 30 people out there helping us get this passed who know what they're talking about. They're members. That's great.
And we did tell them at the beginning of the meeting, we'll talk, we make recommendations based on what we talked about at that meeting, but it was up to management to make a recommendation to the board, and it may or may not be accepted. We do the best we could. That's where it got left.
Wasn't it a tripartite recommendation? So it was the 30,
It was-
1 year, second year 10, then the CPI or the escalator clause, I like to call it escalator clause, of up to 3.96%, right?
Right?
And then the change in amenities. My concern is if we do only the assessment increase and we want to address the amenities, but if we don't, the full package, as I understand it, from the advisory group or advocacy group, was to include that escalator clause, the CPI. And if we don't do that, my concern is that looking out into 3 to 5 years down the road, we may very well have to come back, and I think we need to be very open about that. So how do we address that?
So I'll just, I should have clarified this. What they wanted on the ballot were 3 items. One was the approximate 40 increase over 2 periods of time, the change from CPI to a set percentage, and thirdly, to change the distribution of member fees to 20, 40, 40. So those were the 3 parts they asked beyond there. And we discussed doing like that 4% on this ballot, but not making that effective till a couple of years down the road. So people knew when they're voting, here's everything we're looking at, and they know that what they're getting. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So I need to understand what is the difference between the escalator clause and adding, saying it's 20, 30 or 30.
I think maybe what she's asking, remember we did the calculation about if you did a 4% increase versus a $10 a month difference? What were those numbers? Do you remember?
I don't remember them off the top of my head.
It was significantly different.
It goes up quite a bit. I just was looking at my phone by adding 4%, 4%, 4%. Where does this 4% number come from? Are management telling us that our expenses are going up 4% every year?
No,
Or is that just to try to get to a certain number?
No, this came from the committee that had
I
no.
personally think 4% is too much. but-
That's fine. I think what we're trying to say is this is what the committee advised.
Right.
Or asked us for both.
Or, so so that we're together and we are discussing. Personally, I would feel more comfortable with something in the order of 30, 10, 10, or 30, 20, 10, because I don't know that we'll ever be able to come back with the escalator clause and be successful. And that's my personal opinion as a member and as a part of the board. And I know desperately we want to pass an assessment increase because we need it. But I hate to kick the can down the road to find out there it is and we have to kick it more. So I bring it up because of that.
I feel like we could pass an assessment increase if it's the right assessment increase. I felt like people felt like the first one we ran was too small. As it turns out, it would have been too small. It never would have did what we needed to get done. And the last one, people felt, some people, I mean, there's a certain amount of people that are going to vote for whatever we propose. And that was too high. I think that over the years, I've seen assessment increases failed before. And when people want them, they'll pass if they feel it's necessary. I think we sell this one right, we'll get it passed, and if we need another assessment increase in a couple of years, if we sell that right, it'll pass as well.
Do you think 40 is the right number?
I think 40 is the right number. I don't like this 4% going on every year. I mean, in 10 years, it's going to be, you know, it's compounded.
And I think I want it out there right now because I think we're going to find out how far the 40 goes. We have the current proposal that's in front of us. It gives us a little bit of time to make that evaluation.
Sure.
In the sense that we're proposing tonight, basically the bare bones proposal we have right now is 30, starting this summer, and then another 10 next summer. And then, but we were not going to do even the CPI in those two periods. And the CPI increase has been approved through 2027. So we literally have a good year to see what we can get done, where we're at. We have a lot on our table, obviously. We've got to figure out how to get do something with the food services committee. At this point, I want to throw it over to Jim so he can show or discuss some of the pieces of what the management committee put together in the 40.
Well, we looked at all the stuff that the MAG had discussed, and we want to thank them first for spending a whole lot of time putting that together. And we took most of it to heart. The assessment increase that we're recommending is for a total of $40. 30 goes in effect July 1st of 20. The other 10 goes in effect June 1st of 21. The CPI would be frozen till the end of 21. So that the management committee, when we got discussing the CPI changing to an escalator, we wanted to put the assessment out there pretty much by itself, because we didn't want other pieces hanging on to it for people to get upset about and, think we were hiding stuff or whatever. It also gives us 2 member meeting elections, 2 Augusts in there to come back, and especially the one next August, because we would be getting towards the end of the 21, and put the escalator on there in place of the CPIW if we feel it's going to be needed. So that's what the assessment proposal is. The other proposal is, and it mirrors pretty much what the MAG came up with on the amenities, which the new member fee would be divided 40% to amenities up to $75,000, 20% to road assessment fund, and the remainder, 40%, plus the overage of $75,000 going into the general fund. That's pretty much exactly what the other piece, I think, was the supermajority vote, and I think MAG even recommended not putting that on Mays, which we agreed. We think that at some point that needs to be voted on, but I don't think I think we're having a special election to vote on an assessment, and we kind of want to keep the ballot clean as much as possible, and that's what we came up with.
Jim, one other point on the not putting the CPI on now, and originally I was for it, but if you hit, when we discussed in the Constitution how to do that, if you put it in one motion where it's 30, 10, and the CPI, the language would, you just couldn't do it, couldn't make sense. You put it on in 2 different ballot issues, and people are going to say, oh, I can do the 30 and 10, or I can do the 4%. And that's, that people just might vote for the 4% and forget the 30 and 10.
Which would be very misleading.
And it'd be misleading, it'd be confusing on a ballot, and everybody, unfortunately, the MAG group knows what they're talking about, but a lot of people coming to vote would not know that, and we'd be vulnerable to the 4% passing and not getting the 30 and 10.
That's right. So again, my only thought with bringing up what I did is for total transparency. So this will help now, but doesn't guarantee that there won't be more needed. And so I hope no one takes away that that's the case.
Well, I would hope that, that there's no guarantees. We can't promise that, the $40 is gonna fix all of the, problems over the next. Somebody asked me the other day, if we pass this, is there gonna be no more, are you gonna come back in 4 or 5 years? Well, I don't have a crystal ball, nobody at this table does. We don't know. We would certainly hope that the $40 increase and then some sort of an escalator instead of being at the mercy of the CPIW, that would, I think, we could say we're gonna be pretty safe for a while.
Yeah, the escalator would help. Problem is it requires a vote.
I know.
Were you saying during the period of time that the assessment increase goes, 30 and 10, that you would not be even doing the CPI increase during that?
Historically, we don't. We always shut down the CPIW when there's a.
I don't know, maybe we should.
That was not
Okay,
something we,
it's
that
already
was
on
not
there.
something we
Well,
discussed.
we can check, we can edit that language right here.
How much
was it?
It was $1 something.
$1.7%.
It's $3.
$3?
About $3.
It's about 24,000.
Can we just leave it the way it is?
Well, if we go up 4%, that's
$49 in 5 years.
No, we're not talking about that.
We're not.
We're talking about the CPI.
Right, that CPI, it all depends what it is. It's just, and the CPI is not really cost of living, it's what they're gonna give to Social Security.
That is correct.
That's right.
That's
Yeah,
what
we-
we're saying too.
I'm not about that either.
No.
So this year, that got us about 24,000 as
Yes.
a club, which
Right.
didn't cover even the employee increases.
But it's something.
Yeah,
It
I'd
is
say leave it
something.
on.
Yeah, I
So we
I would
could,
leave it on there, if it's
already
already,
spend it.
I don't think, we didn't anticipate freezing the CPI with that increase. We didn't discuss
It's
that.
pretty straightforward. Just edit that out. And we'll go, as of July 1, you will go from, given the current amounts, we'll go from 171 and 5 cents, and you go to 201 and 5 cents. Then the CPI we would use that. That is calculated effective January 1. So we use the numbers from September to September to find out what that number is. It's not growing very quickly again this year. It's a relatively flat number again, but there's no reason not to do it. I agree.
Well, we wouldn't have any issue with leaving the CPIW in there.
I don't think so.
It's just a, change a word or two and rock and roll.
It's a
I'm fine with that.
it makes the ballot language a little cleaner is probably all it does, because they sure can give an exact amount that it's gonna be, that we won't know what it's gonna be for that.
That is
second
correct.
increase.
That's correct.
All you have to do is, you're looking at the language in front of you, where in red, that paragraph says 2022, you just take that off and you leave 2018 in there when it started.
That's true. You've all seen what sort of numbers that Jim has proposed. Again, the amount of the,
Well,
Pretty good at
we
that.
got one question. Yep.
That language would have to change
Yeah,
as far
that's
as
what I
what's
was
in
talking about.
2021, it says
Yeah.
it would go to 211.05,
Yeah.
that's not true.
You don't know what that's
Yeah,
gonna
we
be.
don't know what that number would be, the 211.05 number. We don't know what the CPI would be next
Yeah,
year.
it'd be 201.05 plus the CPIW.
plus the, yeah,
Plus
right,
5.
that's what we say, plus the 20,
Yeah, you'd have to change that line.
yeah, yep. Plus the 2021
It
increase.
can't be that easy.
I did talk to Tim today, Constitution Chair, for everybody.
Tim
He
Krause.
said, Tim Krause, and that as long as we has the sense of the motion, or the sense of the change, we don't have to have, the code does not ask us for the specific language. So we can get the specific language back to you tomorrow.
That's what the.
And we're still good with having the meeting.
We're good.
Get
We're
the 90 days.
What we want to do.
So the motion would be on what we're talking about, and then you would send out the exact verbiage for them to.
Correct.
There you go.
All right, and for everybody's information, the amount of money that would be generated And of course, it'd only be 6 months of it for this year, for 2020, but the continuing funds would be 284. So it'd be 142 that we've been generating cash for 2020. And then next year, when we do the additional $10, that would be roughly another 95,000. So those are the numbers that you spoke to, Bill Sharp. Just a little under 400,000.
And that gives us the ability to bring the two big funds, the depreciation and the capital, up to where we need them. It would also give us the ability to, there'd be some, and especially the first year, going into operating to handle payroll. So that the layoffs, we wouldn't have to go back and ask for donations.
Right. Yeah, because we cut the personnel budget by about $70,000 this year for that. And well, more than that, because we also did the golf course as well.
About 120
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. So those are the pieces of that. And again,
Would that allow the golf course people to come back?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only problem with that would be, whether we could get those same two, the seasonal that we've had for, one's been here 2 years, the other's been here 3 or 4 years. They potentially will find something else before we find out whether this is passed or not. But I would gather that, pretty much the day after the vote, if it passes, there'll be some phone calls made to tell them they get to come back.
other questions?
With the $40 increase, how long before you see the capital and depreciation funds getting to where they need to go?
I don't have the spreadsheet here in front of me. The one thing is that you have to keep in mind is when money's going in, money's coming out too. You know, there's certain stuff every year, all year long that, so.
Yeah, but you guys budget for a certain amount each year on capital, and you've got a schedule for depreciation, so every budget's an estimate.
Right.
Did you guys kind of lay out how long you thought it would take us to get those back to fully? Okay.
No. I would say, with what we're doing in the budget this year, with the other cuts that were made, I would say that they'll both be in decent shape in 2 years. You know, they won't be rainy day fund or anything like that, but they'll be able to handle what we've got going on, and then going forward, they'll be able. Because if you look at, and you guys did, you saw the depreciation fund, there's been a whole lot of that stuff that's been kicked down the road 2 or 3 years. And I think 3 years from now, there's a year that, let me see, we budget $128,000 and the Excel spreadsheet showed $250,000 worth of purchases 3 years down the road. So those numbers don't work.
Yeah, the budget that we approved last month at $128,000 for depreciation and the $70,000 for capital. Again, hoping that we don't have to, it's not enough. But that was the target that we had starting off.
That also gives us the ability to refund some of the other funds that were not where they need to be.
Yep.
Employee insurance fund, just that whole list of funds that we cover once a month.
I want to make sure everybody has enough chance to get their views and questions all asked and answered. Is there anything further, Jim or Mary Beth or myself or Randy? All right, are we ready to vote then? Ballot issue 1, yeah, we'll do ballot issue 1 first. Ballot issue 1 basically says that effective January 1, well, we had to change it because it was the previous number. Effective January 1, 2020, the normal lot assessment for a lot or parcel, whether developed or undeveloped, owned by a member or members, is $171.05 per month. Effective from July 1, 2020 through May 2021, the normal lot assessment shall be $201.05 plus the CPI.
Actually, that's not right either, because you're going to have CPI plus your CPI.
Plus the CPI.
Yeah.
And then effective January 1, 2021, the normal lot assessment shall be $211.05 plus the CPI increase that was there. We take out the next in the next column, and or the next point, which was talked about not doing the CPI. That's the change. Those would be the two pieces. Do I have a motion to approve this assessment increase?
So moved.
Annie moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Scott seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries by unanimous votes. Now our work's going to be out for us to get this, get the information out, share it with people. Well, hopefully your group is going to be part of that process. I mean, we did a lot of work last year too, again, so we'll have to have some informational settings, and of course this video will be available on YouTube for everybody to see. All right, let's move on to ballot issue number 2. And that's new member initiation fee funds are to be distributed as follows. 40% will go into the amenity improvement fund account up to $75,000, 20% to the road assessment fund, and the remainder to go into the general fund account. The amenity improvement fund may only be drawn upon after all monies have been fully accounted for and collected from the prior year. The Long Range Planning Committee shall consult with committee chairpersons each year to determine and prioritize how the monies in the amenity improvement fund should be distributed, shall recommend such prioritization of amenity improvements to the Board of Trustees for approval and distribution of said funds. And Mary Beth, your group they voted unanimously, did you say?
Yeah, yes, I mean, looked unanimous to me. So it was pretty informal.
You didn't record any votes?
No, we did not record it.
From
where I was sitting, that's how it appeared.
Okay. Again, the main issue with this has been it's about 15 years ago, I think it was like 2005, the new member fee was changed from being 1 year of assessments and 1 year of road assessments to being 2 years. And that's when that number spiked. So it went up a huge amount. And then obviously since the 2009, 2010, we've had a lot of activity in terms of real estate, things turning over, and the new member fee. There has been a question about whether we need to cap the new member fee at some point in the future. I think that's another conversation to have, but I don't think we want. Back to let's keep this as simple and as straightforward as we can. I don't think that we need to have that right now. We have another, like you said, we have another meeting in August. If people feel strongly about that, we can talk about it. Any further questions or discussion about this?
One comment about this that was brought up at the MAG group, and that while you're limiting the amount of money you can give to the committees, you should also try to limit the number of times that management uses what should be funded out of management funds coming out of amenities. So they're kind of.
I think that's a good point. That's a good point.
Sometimes it's hard to do it.
Yeah, we're not saying.
I mean, stuff crosses over. Is it a management, like remodeling at the clubhouse, for example, or the generator at the clubhouse? Both good projects, but how do you figure that out? My question would be, what's the difference? What would be the difference, say, in this last amenity fund distribution, and how would it have changed if this was in effect?
Well, the last amenities from the new member fee last time, 143,000 or so went to amenities. This caps it at 75,000. So those extra funds above 75,000 would have been distributed either to roads and or the operating fund, which also could have gone to roads.
So $68,000 would have been
in the general fund.
That is correct.
Actually, close to that, but I can't do it in my head like you do. 28,600 would have gone to roads. So an extra 10% would have gone to roads. And then 66,400 would have gone into operating instead of
amenities.
The amenities money for that generator could be paid out of operating.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all our money that's just going in different accounts.
Absolutely. And we've done, various times, we've partnered certainly with the committees on a lot of activities, and that can continue. Right. I mean, I agree that's.
I feel like we built a lot of good stuff and spent money on a lot of amenities. Maybe it's time that we've got enough amenities, we've got pay for them.
The
upkeep on it.
I agree. We've got a lot of stuff here.
Well, with the assessment increase, hopefully the funds will be there in capital and depreciation to where we don't have to go to, ask Lake Committee if they'll help us build canoe racks or something, which they always step up. Thank you very much.
Or the golf committee, buy a mower.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
That should have been, if we'd have had the right funding and depreciation, we wouldn't have had to make that call. So,
Tim, any questions at all? No? Anybody? All right, that being said, may I have a motion to approve ballot issue 2 as read? So moved.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Just one thing, I just want to ask about this. Would it be wiser to keep the roads at 10% and throw that extra 10% into operating? It would be more diverse as far as shipping is concerned. I just throw that out there for some thought, because I've been thinking about it since I heard about it. It's just something, I may be all wet, but I thought at least we ought to think about that.
It could still be spent on the roads that way.
Yeah.
Or it could be used where you had to use it to be more flexible, I believe is what you said.
I kind of
Well, we've been doing 10% on the roads, and we've done a good job on the special assessment, and the 10% that's been coming in. We've been doing a pretty decent job on that, and I just wonder if it would be wiser to put that into the operating fund, so that they could use it where they really needed it.
You must not be driving on my side of the lake. On the dark side.
You don't live too far from here.
I'm not particularly suggesting that, I just think it's some food for thought.
I have a question, and I think I understand, I think I know the answer, but I want to be certain. So our road assessment goes toward our roads. It does not go toward our ditches and culverts.
It goes to the roads.
So maybe if we followed what Jim said and put that 10% into operating, so instead of 20% into roads, only keep the 10% and put that other 10% into operating, maybe that would give us more money to deal with ditches and culverts, which I know is a big issue, and it's costly.
It would, and also to Scott's point, I mean, if we got to a situation where our roads fund had been spent for the year and we still needed, and our capital fund was funded correctly, and we needed to go, fix a piece of road on the dark side,
Right.
then we'd have the money.
Right.
But it wouldn't be restricted. The road fund is 100%, it always goes to the roads, period.
Has there been enough in the roads fund the last couple of years?
We've used it all.
Yeah, we've used every penny of it.
Yeah, I don't know if people know that doesn't include ditches and culverts.
Not really.
Yeah, one would assume that
Yeah.
that's part of the road.
I would have thought.
So it's basically a chip and seal fund.
Right.
And
Not a road
and
fund,
photo
per
pictures.
se.
And it also buys the
Well, that
grindings,
is different still too, but
Scott, it also buys the grindings and stuff that they spread in the wintertime. And it did the moto pay the years we did the moto pay. So either way, it's gonna get spent on that, the ditches, culverts and roads, just whichever fund it comes out of.
Well, I think
Jim's proposal gives us a little more flexibility.
Yes,
That's basically what he's saying.
yes.
I'm fine with that.
I'm good for flexibility.
so that makes it actually just simple. All it does now is it just caps the amenity improvement fund at, because we're currently 50, 40, 10. Now we just cap it at $75,000.
Or 40%.
Pardon?
Or
I said-
40%.
Yeah.
40% would go in instead of.
I'm sorry, you're right,
Or
40%, you're right, 40%. 40%.
Yeah, so it'd be 40, 10, 50.
Right.
And then all the overage over 75 would go into the capital also, which would operate, pardon me. Yeah. Okay. Makes say?
It's 40-10, the rest operate.
Pretty
That's the
much.
way it's written.
Yeah. All right. That has been, do I have a motion to amend it to that?
So moved.
Scott moves and Linda seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now, do we want to vote?
Aye.
Aye. You better say aye. If you say no on that one, we're turning off the phone. All right, I would now take a motion to approve ballot issue 2 as amended.
So moved.
Linda moves, a second.
I'll second.
Any seconds, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Very good, thank you, folks. We'll start writing about it in the Echo this month. I actually took the opportunity to start drafting the president's note in hopes that this would all be accomplished tonight. Let's move on to expanded voting options.
All right, so as we were talking about the assessment survey we did last fall, it was pretty clear that the people that didn't vote felt that it was inconvenient, and a number of those were weekenders, so we'd like to talk about a couple options. I'm not suggesting we make any motions tonight, but one option that I think we should look at for the May election is opening up some early voting options. So just like the day of the annual meeting or the day of an actual vote, we have members come and volunteer and people can come and register and they can vote. We could do the same thing on an early voting basis where we set up dates and times for members to come and cast their votes outside of the actual May 11th meeting.
May 17th.
Yes, May 17th. We'd be able to cross-check this against the list that Penny manages from an absentee ballot perspective, and we would, in turn, anyone who voted, we would send that list back to her so that if she got any absentee requests, that way we'd make sure nobody was voting twice. I don't believe this requires any change in our language, or does it?
Greg, I think you spoke with Tim Kraus tonight, and he also contacted me, and I really like the idea of early voting. I like the concept of e-voting. There's a lot of devil in the detail, but in talking with Tim, and Tim's done this for a long time, and he knows our code language, he believes that we would need to modify our code language to allow for either or both of these options.
Yeah, I wasn't speaking to the electronic voting yet, because I think that's
Okay.
got a lot more devil in the details to it, but it felt like the early voting was a little bit more simpler. But
And I talked with him about that too.
so what would be
Wouldn't we have to convene a meeting and open the ballot box and all that stuff that we do when we start voting at the annual meeting and the special meetings?
Are you asking Annie?
I'm asking anybody that has an idea that that's the way we do it, is nobody's allowed to put their ballots in the box until, but I suppose you could keep the ballot somewhere, but
I guess my mind is like, how is that any different than an absentee ballot? I don't come to the meeting to listen to the meeting if I absentee vote, right?
I understand, and I'm not arguing.
No, I'm just
asking the question of that's the way we do it. People come in there, they can't put their ballots in the box until we open the ballot box in the meeting. And then we stop, then we recess the meeting and they vote, and then we come back.
And the absentees aren't counted
They're
until, they're just thrown in one of the ballot boxes, so.
I don't see why these wouldn't go in the same box.
And so could they, and then those be placed as vote counted with.
I think what Tim was saying is we need to have a process, and it should be indicated in the code before we try to do it so that we don't stub our toes.
The concern is that the language in the code is specific to absentee ballot voting and voting at the election. Now you're having another way to vote that's not in the code, and
How hard is it to get an absentee ballot?
Well, not hard.
Well, that's what my thoughts are, like, if you really wanna vote, how hard is it to vote? How, you even show up at the meeting or ask for that?
Let me ask you a question. We've got an absentee ballot process, so why, how could we open it to where you could walk in during office hours, get an absentee ballot, open the envelope, vote, put it back in an envelope and hand it back to them all at the same time?
I think my
Isn't that the
concern,
same as voting early?
my concern with that is a number of these people were weekenders. You've got 43% of your members are weekenders, so coming in for an office time is not gonna work for
But
them.
could we hand out an absentee ballot on a volunteer type basis instead of, like what Jim's saying, that just
And
have
then they
somebody
still
sitting
mail
up
it in.
there at the clubhouse saying you want absentee ballots, there'll be someone to issue you one, they have the list of who they've been sent
I
out
don't see
to.
any problem with
And
that.
then you can just turn around and put it right in the mailbox and mail it in.
That could work.
That would work.
That's just helping them get an absentee ballot a little
And then
quicker.
Monday morning, you turn the list into Penny and
Yep.
she puts it in her master list of who's got, you see a problem with
It'd just be really hard to verify and track.
That's my concern is, yeah, how do they not come to the meeting and vote again?
Well, they do
Well,
now when
they
you
do
get an
that now.
absentee ballot.
that? No.
You can't vote once you
Lined up,
you're crossed
right.
off the list.
If you walked up to the table at the clubhouse on
Right.
Saturday.
I understand that, but by what you're saying, can we control it the way it's controlled now? By doing something different? That's what I was questioning.
I think that's, that was Tim's concern, was that we think through the process, not that the idea is bad, the idea is good, but it is thinking through the process so that we don't stumble and that we do it correctly. I did say do.
Yeah, you did.
And it does, if we decide this does not need a code change, we've got till May to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So in our household, I do this, so I'll speak up a little bit too from experience. It's not that hard to get an absentee ballot. You can send an email in to Penny or into the office and they mail it to you. I think the biggest issue, and you can put judgment on it if you want, is you have to go to the post office in essence to get the stamps, or you have to guess how much it goes on the envelopes. So would it be, and then it would be an expense, but could you just put prepaid postage on the absentee ballot? And or be more directive and tell people that they can put it in that black box by the security gate, because I don't think a lot of people know that. So I think there's improvement you can do even with the current absentee ballot.
Maybe if we knew the assessment would pass, we could afford the postage.
I gotta venture that's gonna be like $400 tops, even if every member asks for an absentee ballot.
But even the black box, you're right, I don't think everyone
They don't.
is aware, and I think that's a good idea.
You can even put signage on that during that time frame. Put signage in the black box, drop your absentee ballot here and stuff.
And I think I would think the one issue with having volunteers at the clubhouse is you'd have for like a chain of custody sort of question for the attorneys in the room. Because, I mean,
I think we'd have to have the same oversight you have the day of the meeting.
right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wouldn't
otherwise,
just be-
I mean, so if it's, somebody who's a friend of the person who's running for election and they're the one taking them, I can see the conspiracy theorists among us saying, well, they looked and saw that, that this person wasn't gonna vote for you. And so I don't wanna encourage that sort of thought. Because right now, I don't think there is any of that. I think people,
I think just putting the stamps on the envelope seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah, that seems
Doesn't the communications committee have some money they could communicate some stamps with?
this seems like
That's my committee. Don't be taking my money.
I think the board has the transfer fund, which could be rightly used for this.
Could you
That's a
put
good
it in
idea.
the transfer fund?
Good money right now. But I guess we need to look at the real reason why we're discussing this. We're trying to get as many people to vote as possible.
That is
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So if you think that would work, then I'd say, okay, let's look at that and go that route. But I think we need to make sure that that's going to encourage people to
Vote yes.
vote. Well, no, I'm not saying that, I'm
And
just
I
saying
said
vote.
so.
I just say
Right.
vote.
I agree with you, Tim, but I've said that on some Facebook posts that just because you get more people to vote doesn't mean that they're gonna vote yes.
Well,
Because I feel like the people that don't vote may be more opt to vote no, where people that really care are they're the ones that are finding a way to get the vote done.
So a number of them actually indicated they didn't vote because they didn't feel they knew enough because they were new members.
You'll get,
Or it wasn't convenient.
Or it wasn't convenient.
Maybe for this time, we put together a task force and look at how we do early balloting. I know you're looking at e-voting also, which I
Yeah.
can't help with at all.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, you know, there's just been research, there obviously, you know, if you go by the Facebook poll we did, there's a lot of interest in it, but I think there's a lot to work out, and I would rather see if MAG or another committee could work on that to actually, if there's interest in doing that, to actually work through all those details and bring that recommendation back to us.
Okay.
So we could do the same with the absentee for the early voting.
I'm Greg Travaglio. I'm a weekender, have been for 10 years. And we voted, obviously, for the assessment the last time. We're very disappointed it didn't happen. I think, Scott, you have it exactly backwards. I think the people who didn't vote, because their money's at stake, if they really were concerned about their money, they would have voted no. I think the people who didn't vote were generally people who would vote yes. And a lot of the people who didn't vote were weekenders. And they didn't vote because, you know, you might say, okay, it's a minor inconvenience to get an absentee ballot. That may be true, that's a judgment call. But the fact is, there were a lot of weekenders who didn't vote. And I think, who knows? But I think, at least based on the logic of it, the fact is that a weekender who didn't vote, had they voted, would more likely have voted yes than no. And so I think it's absolutely crucial to try to create efficiencies in the voting process consistent with the bylaws, or consistent with the Constitution. I mean, you don't want to get into two fights at once, trying to amend the Constitution and to do the assessment thing. But consistent with the Constitution, I think it's absolutely critical to try to create as many efficiencies in the voting process as you possibly can. And obviously, we want to be concerned about security, but, I'm on a couple of different boards, and we do website voting for boards of directors, we do email voting for boards of directors. You can do the security. And I'm not suggesting that those are consistent with the Constitution. All I'm suggesting is that the board, our board, that you try to create as many efficiencies in the voting process as you possibly can. And I think it's doable. Some ideas that you floated already tonight are good ones. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, appreciate that. Well, let's go for sure with the stamp this time. Let's try the stamp and see whether we get, I don't think we're gonna be able to get anything on the ballot, because if it's a code revision, it requires 2/3 approval, if that's the case. But we can take a look at it and see what things, I think his point is well taken.
I think we should form a committee or a task force, whatever you'd like to name them, to explore it and bring it back. Maybe it's, obviously to your point, not in May, but maybe it's for August again, to try to get more options for members to vote.
I'm fine with that.
We don't want to end up like the Iowa caucus.
Yeah, somebody design an app for us, please.
Without running cost $20 million.
All right, let's go forward then.
We need a motion to approve the expenditure of funds for putting postage on.
No.
No? Okay.
And then can we put in the echo something about the black box down front?
Sure.
You can put your ballots in there and maybe have someone, Randy, put some kind of a sign up at the black box, put your absentee ballots here or whatever. Right. That hangs on the Scar check.
Yeah, you can drop your payments off and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Annie, this was another topic you wanted, updating monthly reports in the Echo.
Yeah, so in front of you, you've got a sample report that I wanted to propose that we consider changing what we put in the monthly Echo. Obviously, the balances of our funds have been a topic of a lot of discussion as of late, so regularly reporting them along with the income and expense, more or less as a balance of accounts report, I think would be highly valuable to our members. The numbers on here, outside of the top numbers of December, those are accurate. Everything else on here is fake, so don't take it as these are real numbers. I just made them up. And again,
We didn't steal confidence.
You know, the thing that we want to convey is not just the balance of those accounts, but what is the goal for those balances to be, so that members understand like what we're striving for. And then in addition, because we have received a lot of questions about what is spent from capital, what are we spending capital funds on and what are we spending depreciation funds on, each month we could outline any expenditures that were from those funds and what they went for, what the dollar amounts were. That way, if people have questions, they can clearly see it in the Echo.
Can we send this out in the e-blast as well, once a month?
Yeah, that's,
And I think a lot of people don't, you know, I read all the emails they send me.
I don't see why not unless there's any.
No, I don't see a problem with that.
When we post it to the Echo, we can just post it as an e-blast also.
Okay.
And it could also go on the
Facebook.
Facebook page.
No, I made these goal numbers up as well, so.
That's a good thing.
I think we do need to agree on what the goal balances of these are. Now, the roads, I don't know if there really is a goal because it's income you get once a year and you spend it throughout the year, so I don't even know if that needs a goal next to it, but I would defer to you guys as to what those goals should be outlined.
Well, the goal of that one is 0.
By the end of the year, but,
Yeah, I mean, the balance is what it is, but the goal is to.
so maybe you don't list the goal for that.
Correct.
Yeah. And the amenity fund would be variable each year based upon what was.
Well, we change every month.
Yep.
By, you know,
Yep.
the new member fee coming in.
So how would you predict what the goal is for the capital fund? Where would you get that number, or the depreciation fund?
From the management committee.
I've been told by Sigafoos that capital should be anywhere from 200,000 to 300,000, and that depreciation should be 300,000 as our goal.
And they were operating before that time, when the dam assessment, or when the dam needed replaced. It looked like it was hovering in the 270-ish, 280-ish.
Capital or depreciation?
Capital, I think it was capital then.
Okay. Capital has been as high as 500,000, which is really where it should be.
Wow. Yeah, we were saying 300,000 was the right goal on those, so if we
No, I know,
want
that's why-
500,000, it's gonna take us a little longer.
Well, 300,000 is a good goal on capital.
Oh, yeah, it's a goal, but
Depreciation, you know, our goal is to have 128,000 in there to spend this year. So, the goal we'd love to have it at 200,000. 300,000 is kind of a little bit of a reach.
Well, it sounds like in 3 years, you're gonna spend, we need to spend the 300,000, it's
Well,
gonna be in there in
Well,
3 years from
we'll
now.
move some stuff forward.
Move it forward.
the other lakes communities are all doing reserve studies to see exactly how much they should have in their reserves, and it'll surprise you.
On the lake committee thing you go to? So you think 500 on capital is better to have, and
Oh, yeah, it's definitely better. It's probably still not enough.
With our infrastructure, I would agree. And I think we ride a narrow, narrow margin.
Annie, I like the report. We'll work on getting you legitimate goals.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
We'll have to figure out what the right numbers are. I don't know, again.
And it may be like you said on roads, where we just don't put a goal. We let everybody know, because it's gonna go, you know, we buy a $55,000 mower,
Yep.
then, it's gonna drop.
Also with the depreciation fund, years ago, it was about, the monthly number was about half of what we're putting in there now. And then it's probably been 6 or 7, maybe even 8 years ago where the number we're putting in now was recommended. However, that number is way out of date also for the depreciation fund. I mean, you can pretty much see by our chart how much that's underfunded, even with what we're putting in or what we're supposed to be putting in now. So that's another, I mean, that goal should be higher also.
I agree.
We'll work on it.
Okay.
All right.
We're good to move forward with
All right, this is a hot topic for all of us, which is the handling of packages. I think I asked yesterday, Randy, we're still handling over between 60 and 70 packages a day.
It's lessening, but yes. Yeah.
I was picking up a package at the time.
Yeah, you're talking about 230 packages a week, so they're about.
We got 2 or 3 of us working on trying to get estimates. Dan Donovan reached out to
FedEx,
an old contact that he had. Yeah, and their recommendation was for a community of 800, which there's quite a few that are weekenders and probably don't take advantage of the package situation. Their estimate was, what was that, $88,000? And that wasn't including the roof over top of it. So, but it was 100 and some boxes.
170 lockers.
Yeah, 170 lockers, which would be, that would handle anything except the major rush like November, December. Because you get those full and people don't come pick them up fast enough. But still, that estimate's 88 grand. We are, Annie's reached out to some people. I'm still looking at some websites. We're trying to come up with all the options and then look at it.
Is this kind of like a self-service thing?
Yes,
You go get your own stuff like you do at the post office?
Yes, it's a kiosk and it has to have power to it and it has to have Wi-Fi. And it has to have a roof over it, like the shelter house down front, something like that. And UPS shows up and they load the boxes and code in whatever they're going to code in. It sends you a text saying in locker number 4 down front, you've got a package. You go down and you put there's a code that they give you in that text. You put it in and the locker door opens up and you get your stuff out.
So FedEx does the same lockers?
You can buy a system that all of them will use, or you can go to Amazon and buy their system and nobody's allowed to use it but Amazon.
Yeah.
Which.
Would Amazon pay for some of that?
No.
No. Bezos has the money.
Yeah. Even after the divorce, he's got the money.
So I gave you guys printouts of a different solution, which is Southwest Solutions Group. A member recommended we look into them, but this just kind of gives you an idea of, again, a comparison to the one that Dan Donovan got. I think it would probably take us, a good 5 years to recoup the return on that investment.
I just figured real quick, labor, I checked with Randall, averaged over the whole year, 5 days a week, security spends at around 4 hours a day on packages only. And, taxes and benefits and that sort of thing, and I sent her the number and I didn't bring it with me.
It's $19,500.
So, yeah, 5 years, to pay $100,000 for construction and everything.
Well, they spend a lot of time calling and handling the packages, or is that because, what else would they be doing at that time? Are there other tasks that they're not
What they've
doing?
been doing for the last 6 months is one person was doing it wholeheartedly. I mean, that's actually, what they should be doing is one of them should be out on routes.
Okay.
And up opening up here for meetings and doing that sort of thing. And when they get covered up in packages, they basically don't go on their routes. They don't drive around and do wellness checks and vacation checks and that sort of thing. They're spending 4 hours.
Oh, I'm not,
And during the busy
I'm
season.
not arguing with you, that, I just wondered what else they, might, because, they could do the package, I guess, the call is what gets me. It seems like the people should know when their packages are there. I know when my packages are.
Well, quite a few people do. I get a notice that I've got something down there, and I showed up a couple of weeks ago, and Mike had the phone in his hand and said he was just getting ready to dial the phone number to call me, so I saved you the call, but quite a few people don't, and we still have some that think that's a storage place for their packages.
Well, if you take a look at that log, there's times they call them 2 and 3 times.
Yeah.
How do we deal with medicines that need to be refrigerated that are shipped?
Or perishable.
Yeah,
We do medicines.
Yeah.
We're not doing food.
Right.
so medicines.
We've actually sent some notifications out that we don't have the space to do food.
Right.
These systems, by the way, I'm sure in her research she found the same thing. You can get, one set of them that are refrigerated. Takes a little bit more electricity, but it's something we could look at when we get to that point.
We
But
do
med-
have a refrigerator down there.
For the medicine.
Yeah, I know that we currently do, but I didn't know how it would work with like Southwest Solutions
Yeah,
or whatever.
I think they all have, the ability to put refrigeration lockers in, so that sort of stuff would be fine. I don't know that we wanna take it to the point of people having their food delivered down there.
It's just shocking the amount of money it costs the club for people to get packages. I'm thinking it just seems like there should be some kind of.
Deliver it to their house, like I've been saying.
Well, except I do get that and we had someone in our group do some research on all of like the the communities. And really there's not a good comparable place that has the kind of hills that we have that deliver. I think the one place that has the hills like we do, they said it was like a roller coaster. What do? They leave it at didn't they have like 2 drop-off points or something? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But there was one place that had something comparable, but the rest of them don't have the problem we have with the hills. And
They basically just let the shipping company deliver the package.
Yeah,
Well, at this
they
point, at this point, the shipping companies don't know how much money they're saving.
Right.
Because the biggest expense is the last mile of delivery.
And they're costing us a lot.
Out in the county, there's roads similar to ours, and they're delivering to those people's houses out there. If we told them they had to deliver, they'd have to deliver.
Aldi's delivers to me,
Right.
right to my door.
Who does?
Aldi's.
Yes. Yeah. They did until 15 years ago or something like that. And UPS used to, I guess UPS is the one that called the GM at the time and
Said they're not doing it.
yeah, they couldn't. Well, there's quite a few driveways in here that, in the dark, I wouldn't want to have to negotiate. And if they're, there's also quite a few against code that don't have any numbers or signage up at the top of the driveway so that you even know where you're turning into.
Yeah.
But we could get to the point where we just say, okay, FedEx, UPS, whoever, when they pull up, can you imagine the look on their face the first time when the guard says, no, we're not accepting them, go ahead and deliver them to the house?
And here's a
Why don't we do that?
Here's a map.
Because
You're talking about spending $80,000.
Yeah.
Let the delivery guys go up into and make the delivery. We don't have to pay the $80,000 for that. And I think after a couple of years of doing that, they might come up with the money for that.
They might volunteer to build our system.
I don't know that they would, but.
But sincerely.
I wasn't on the phone call that came in to Jim Palmer 15 or 16 or 17 years ago, but it was, from what I understand, it was something like, you can tell your people we're not coming in there anymore. So the decision was made, and then it was about 10 packages a week instead of 100 a day.
Right.
To have them dropped off at the the guard shack, and it's just exploded since, especially the last 3 years, it's gone nuts.
Okay,
So we're looking at all kinds of options.
very good. I think we've covered this pretty well for tonight, and we'll keep working on it between combination of people on this group as well as management committee. We'll move forward on that.
Okay.
Lottery Keno update, you said it's in, any feedback at all on the?
Yeah, I think that's 20 of my dollars.
Did you get lucky?
We made, since we've started the lottery, we've made a profit of $1.24. Now, keep in mind, hopefully this will pick up.
Yeah.
But we are also, our fee is $12 a week. So we need to pick up pretty quickly.
You better go spend more.
That's right.
We need another $10.80 next year. All right. All right, that brings us to the end of that. Moving on. Annie, do we have any new members to announce?
Nope, new members.
No new members. Interesting. Anybody have any additional business that we haven't talked about so far? Seeing none?
So moved.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Scott makes you adjourn. Second from Jim Lloyd. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Ron.
36.
Adjourn at 8:36.